Lake Garda. Lago de Garda. Hey there, adventurers. Welcome to Let's Just Go podcast. I'm Kayla, and I've been actually recapping my trip to Europe in the month of June. And today we're talking all about the entire reason that we went on this trip, which is a wedding at the beautiful Lake Garda. So last episode was all about Verona, which was the last stop before the wedding. It was the closest place to catch a train to then take a private transfer to get where we needed to go, which is Malcesine. I'm probably butchering that. If you're Italian, come at me. That's fine. But I'm going to here on out refer to it as Lake Garda because that is, we were literally on the lake. So this wedding was for my wonderful friend Hannah. She was getting married. She is British, her husband is Italian, and this was the place that they decided they wanted to have their wedding. So I have actually known Hannah since 2010. We did our Disney College program together at Wilderness Lodge in Roaring Fork, and we've stayed in touch ever since. I visited her a couple of times in the UK, and she invited Brian and I to her wedding. She specifically said, I'm inviting people that I know will show up. So I had to go. You're telling me that you're getting married in a castle in Italy and I'm invited. I will be there immediately. So that was the whole point of the entirety of the trip to Europe. But let's get into the specifics of getting out to Lake Garda. So day started in Verona. I intentionally booked our transfer to be at 4 p.m. I knew it would take about an hour to get to where we needed to be. And check-in was at 4 p.m. And we also had a late checkout at the Moxie Verona, which was great. So we were able to just leave our stuff in the hotel room, go wander and enjoy time, and then get picked up. So we did last minute shopping. We went to Scout, which is a really cool store that's sort of like PacSun meets Zoomies. They had some really good like outdoor gear. There were lots of brands I'd seen before, lots of brands I'd never heard of. If you wanted Looney Tunes, Snoopy, any of that kind of stuff, they had things, which was really great. I got some fun purchases made there. We also went to OVS, which is a huge Italian retailer that does clothes in a way where I would say it's fast fashion adjacent, but it's higher quality. They have a wide variety, men's, women's, children. It's all there. I got a dress, some shorts, and a matching top. I think that Brian got a shirt. We stopped in a couple OVS locations over the course of our trip in Italy because I liked the store so much. And each one had slightly different things, which I also appreciated. So then after we left Scout, I asked the girl that rang us up at Scout if she had a suggestion of where to go to eat, which is, as you know, my favorite thing to do. And she was like, yeah, if you actually just go down the street, it's going to be right there. It was a good spot. Wasn't my favorite meal that we've had, but it wasn't a bad time either. We enjoyed it, had some beer, had some food, made sure that we were ready to go to get ourselves in the car and all of that. I also had previously gone into the Birkenstock store, saw a pair of Birkenstocks that I really liked, and then I was trying to find out if they had them in the US. I was like texting my best friend and I was like, hey, can you look on the Birkenstock website and see if they have these specific style on the website in the US? Because I could only see the European website. And I'm pretty sure they don't have them in the US, and they're really cute. So I bought them. Really glad I did. They went with a lot of the things that I was wearing over the course of the trip, and I'm a Birkenstock girl through and through, so adding them to my collection seemed right. So then we got back to the hotel. Thankfully, all of our stuff was mostly already packed up. We just did a little bit of rearranging for our new purchases, and then we had our private transfer pick us up at 4 p.m. It was an hour drive, essentially just along the lake most of the way to get us to our next accommodation. The drive was beautiful. because again, you're just along this beautiful lake. You've got the Dolomites all around you. I am just glad that I'm not the one driving because it's narrow roads. There were situations where the driver was having to slam on his brakes. Not his fault. It's just the fact that there's tourists driving on these roads and they don't know what they're doing. And so he's having to slam on his brakes not to smash into them. I definitely napped a little bit on the drive and then woke up to the slamming of the brakes. And eventually we got to Malcesine. I'm trying so hard. Anyways, we eventually got there. Really beautiful, small town. It's a little touristy. I've been told that Germans really love to come to Lake Garda in general, and there was more Italian and German spoken than English for the entirety of our time there, which is really cool. And then we checked into where we were staying, and we had this beautiful view of the lake and of the harbor. It was amazing. And I keep posting videos of it on TikTok and people are obsessed. So this is just a shameless plug to go check out my TikTok so you can see the view. So we eventually met up with the bride and her friends. They were hanging out. They had sat down at the bar literally underneath where we were staying and then like over one. And immediately headed off with her friends. Mind you, I'd never met any of her friends before. I'd met her brother and then obviously her fiance, but everybody else was new to me. So sat down, she's ordering a drink. I'm like, what is that? That looks delicious. And she was like, she didn't know what it was called, but she was like trying to explain it to me. It was a Hugo Spritz. And y'all, if you've never had a Hugo Spritz, you immediately need to. So I used to be an Aperol Spritz girly. I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. But Aperol is really bitter, and I don't always want a super bitter drink. So a Hugo Spritz is Prosecco, elderflower liqueur, so typically St-Germain, soda water, mint, and lime. And it's so good. It's not too sweet. It's really nice and floral. I love the mint in it. It was so good. And it was just so like nice and refreshing on a warm day, sitting out, just like enjoying the time, making new friends. Wow. Yeah, it was amazing. So do yourself a favor if you've never had one and you see it on a menu or you see that they have St-Germain at a bar, they can probably make it for you. And I have since come home and bought St-Germain specifically so that I can make them myself. So anyways, that's my plug for a delicious beverage if you're not sure what you want to drink while you're in Italy or really anywhere in Europe. I will say everyone has their own spritz. It seems like everywhere you go in Italy, they've got a different kind of spritz, but that one's my favorite. It's going to be well known wherever you go. So keep that in mind. This restaurant also had really good salads. Brian and I both had a salad for dinner after having had like charcuterie for lunch. And it was so nice to have some vegetables. And this was the turning point where in the last episode, I was talking about how my stomach had been really bothering me and I didn't know why. This was the turning point for that. And my stomach started to be like, oh, I think I'm actually okay because I was eating vegetables. So after that, we got some gelato, wandered around a little bit, and then decided to call it a night because I really needed to wash my hair. And the next day was the wedding. So I wanted to make sure that I had enough time for my hair to dry before going to bed so that it looked cute for wedding day. But honestly, it was just such a beautiful evening. And we were staying right above the harbor, like I mentioned, and there was live music playing and we could just open the window and hear the music. And it was just this lively little town square. It was just so picturesque and fairy tale like in the most amazing way. I can completely understand why this is a wedding destination because the place was beautiful. So we woke up the day of the wedding, decided to wander around. We hadn't done a ton of exploring the first day, and we realized that the town was actually a lot bigger than we thought it was. So we got a lay of the land a little better. We had a cappuccino. We got some pastries from a local bakery, and they were fantastic. And then the wedding itself the ceremony started at 2. We got there about 1:30. Literally in a castle on a cliff. You can see the Dolomites and the lake behind everything. It was stunning, and it was exactly what I would expect from the bride and groom in the best possible way. And I think I mentioned this earlier. So the bride is British, the groom is Italian. So the entire ceremony, they would say everything in English, and then they would repeat it again in Italian. Because, at the end of the day, weddings are a legality thing too. And they wanted to make sure they knew what they were agreeing to and all of that. We also thought it was going to rain that day, and we're fully expecting rain. It was like, do we bring umbrellas? What are we going to do? What's the vibe going to be? And it worked out perfectly that it did not rain, but the cloud coverage was wonderful and it cooled things down a little bit. So it was really nice. After the ceremony ended, we had about a 30-minute walk to get to where the reception was happening, which was a little further south on the lake. And it was a beautiful walk along a nice, paved path on the lake. We were passing houses and bars and really just, again, picturesque, beautiful. We get to where the reception's happening. There's Prosecco waiting for us. There's hors d'oeuvres being passed around. And everybody is slowly sort of making their way in. And then out in the distance, we see the new bride and groom on a boat. Because again, my friends, they like to have a good time, and they were like, we're going to be on a fucking boat to show up for our reception. And it was so cool. There was a ton of food to eat. I had probably the best lasagna that I had eaten in a very long time. One of the best meals that I had in Italy. I could have had seconds if that had been an option. There was pizza. There was a lot of wine. They didn't do a traditional cake. Instead, they had just a bunch of different types of desserts, which was really cool. It was so cool to be in this place and to have someone that I care so much about wanting to include me in this day, and someone that I've known for as long as I have. And the really fun part is that Brian and I were the only Americans at this wedding. There was one girl from Canada. She's actually from BC. So basically, we're from the same general area, being from the Seattle area and her being just a little north of that. Her husband is Australian. And then for the most part, everyone else was European. So either British or Italian, or there were a couple other countries being represented. It was really cool that we got to go to this wedding. I was exhausted at the end of the night. And then the next day, unfortunately, we were woken up very early because the people who were staying above us were being so loud. They were so loud the night before. They were so loud the day we woke up. So we got up around 7 a.m. trying to figure out where to get a coffee, what we were going to do. And we ended up at this really cute terrace just covered by grapevines and enjoying, watching all the tourists sort of flowing in for the day and drinking our coffee and eating our croissants. And then we wandered around before all the tour groups showed up, which was really nice. So it was very quiet. We were really glad that we were up early. And then we came back, took a little bit of a nap, packed up our things. And then at 4 p.m., we took a transfer back to Verona because we were taking the train to Rome. And I used the same private transfer company to go back to Verona that I had used to get from Verona to this town. And this was not a great experience. We had a driver that was extremely incompetent. We ended up getting to the train station basically right on time, which was a little stressful because I had hoped to have some buffer in there, but I'm glad we made it. And then we had a 3-hour train ride from Verona to Rome. We stopped in Florence at one point. The train changed directions, which was really interesting because I like to be facing the direction that we're traveling. And I thought that I was when we sat down on the train, but in reality, Brian was, because we were sitting at a like 2-person table. And then we got to Florence. He was going over to change seats with me. I said not to worry about it. And then when we took off in the other direction. So that was funny. We then got to Rome. It was about a 10-minute walk to our hotel because we were staying close to the train station, because from here we were actually going to get on a cruise. So we had dinner per the recommendation of someone who was staying at our hotel that was also American. And she said, hey, we just went to this place. It was really good. You should check it out. And then we walked over to the Colosseum. At this point, it's about midnight, but the weather was perfect. I don't know if you've heard, but there's a heat wave going on this summer in Europe, and it was really hot. So it was in the 70s, dark out. The weather was just perfect. We were still sweaty, but at least we weren't like sun beating down on us walking around all these stone buildings. Rome we'll get into more after the cruise, because that's when we did the bulk of our Rome portion of the trip. But honestly, if you've never been to Lake Garda, I would highly suggest checking it out. Malcesine was beautiful. I really enjoyed it. I loved that I didn't hear other Americans while we were there. Sure, I heard some British people, but it was mostly German and Italian being spoken, and it was such a nice change of pace, especially to then go to the culture shock of going back to Rome, where the very first people that we encountered were American teenagers. The wedding was beautiful. The town was just such a vibe. It really felt like a fairy tale. It's a great spot to be in if you're wanting to do some hiking in the Dolomites, if you're wanting to go hang out on the lake. Like, there's just so much going on in that area that is really, really great. You've got to try Hugo Spritz if you've never had one. They're so good. It's a perfect drink for sitting out on a balcony or a patio and just vibing with your friends. And the next episode is going to actually be starting about the cruise. So I did a Disney Cruise Line trip through the Greek Isles. We'll get into that a little bit more as we keep going. If you are looking for any content, Kayla Renee Travel across all socials, KaylaReneeTravel.com. If you're wanting to find blog posts, I've been doing blogs about all the destinations as well. You can find those on my website. I've got, like I said, TikTok videos showing how beautiful this view was that we had from where we stayed. And until next time, let's just go.